to have you out here this morning. And this is my man Rob right here, and he's impressed because just like John, who came a couple of weeks ago, he visited the men's connect group in there, and I think John was going to take an offering, did you?
Oh,
Anyway, so
I thought that was
a group. That's this group here, and what I'm going to do in a moment after I've done some introductions about Rob, and we were reminiscing day before yesterday.
Yeah.
I knew him when he was a youth pastor.
That's it.
And he used to hang out with other youth pastors, and he hung out with the guy who was my youth pastor at the time, who ended up becoming my son-in-law.
Oh.
The other dude, not this dude, the other dude. And he said, how's he going? How's your son? I said, he's not my son-in-law anymore, they got divorced. So youth pastors are not exempt from this.
And window fixes?
No.
Fix. Oh, yes.
What you do then? What's your name? George. It's good to be here. So I just want to first met Rob way back.
Yeah.
And since we started this church in October 1992, like just 25 years ago, it was prior to that, it was in my previous church.
Mm.
And Rob went to California, did you?
I did.
Got caught up in the vineyard movement, right? Vineyard movement?
Yes, we'll part of the vineyard.
John McElroy, we thought was going to be Mr. Vineyard Australia, and Vineyard made a big blue. They didn't take John on.
Yeah.
So John started his own movement. It's called the Southern Cross Church, very messy. And I used to meet with Rob probably once a month or something. We'd go to Scarborough, have a coffee, and because he's Wes Beavis' brother-in-law. Wes says, you live a bit wild there, my brother-in-law Rob. He needs someone to keep their eye, and he started this new church up near Scarborough. Was that Scarborough when you started?
Yeah.
And then the church morphed or transitioned into a C3 church.
That's right.
And of course, John, who we had here a couple of weeks ago, he's a C3 man. He has been the bishop of C3 over time. And our good friend Claude Corello is a C3 man, and he's probably bishop of something or other, South Africa probably now, I think. I think he's the bishop of South Africa.
And Cambodia as well.
So he's all about the place. Good to have Rob here. Rob is no longer leading that church. He's now doing some chaplaincy work and started a ministry to address men's mental health needs, really, I guess. And for those of you who got my email yesterday, the adage, shame on you, which we say to people when they do some dumb thing, Rob's turned that around and he goes, shame off you. So if you struggle with any kind of mental health issues, and lots of men struggle with them, lots of men don't admit to struggling with them, and lots of men think they can go to Bunnings and get the parts and fix it.
How wrong they are.
Yeah, Bunnings are not that good.
So Rob, you've got a lot of work to do here today. So Rob's going to talk to us, and we'll probably do some Q&A later on, and Jeff Davey has cooked up a stall. He's been slaving over a hot stove all night and got some goodies, so we've got to do justice to those. So give Rob a big welcome this morning.
Thank you so much, Gordon. Very kind words, and just want to commend you and your wife, your team. 25 years, is it? Yeah. Having gone to our church, it's a bit of a long story, but that was 23 years, and I've got an idea of what's involved, even though everyone's different, every church is different, but you don't stay in a church for 25 years without having some amazing highs, but some absolutely devastating lows.
Absolutely.
And just riding the storm, and I've talked to a few of you, you've been here for 5 years, right from the very beginning, and just for all of you as men, it's just great to see a church where men rock up on a Saturday morning. So you're either here because you struggle with your mental health and you think, I've never really heard anyone talk about it, so that's fantastic. Or you know someone who's struggling, you've always wondered how do I best minister, serve them, and so you're here to maybe get some information. or you're here because your wife's got all these things for you to do this morning. And you know what, I'd love to spend the whole morning doing all these things, but being the man of God I am, we've got a thing at church and I really need to be there. So if that's you, or you can tick all of the above, fantastic. But really, this morning is very much, a lot of it will be storytelling, because there's a lot of information. I can point you to different books to read, but there's storytelling, because I think part of the storytelling is, hopefully by the end of the storytelling, you'll find that my story is relatable. And there will be a reassurance, there are a few things I connected with, and so that assurance of, I'm not alone in this. And then through the storytelling and a few other practical things, because you've got to have some practical stuff, there is a way forward. So if you're struggling with your mental health, you're not alone. But there is a way forward, and it's not a cookie cutter, it's not these 3 steps, it's not 12 steps, but there are a number of things that we can do that is basically part of a journey. Very few of us, I know a few people who've had a mental health issue, gone forward at a meeting, a conference, a church service, bang, touch of God, wow, anxiety-free, depression-free. That's very rare. I celebrate them, but that hasn't been my experience. My experience has been a long, slow journey. And the awesome thing about that is God is into journey. God is into process.
That's right.
Yeah. So this is where, I wouldn't say this is where it began, but from my perception, this is where everything hit the fan. It was 2007. Our church was about 200 strong. We've been going since 94. We've got credibility. We started our church in a couple of pubs at Scarborough, again getting a reputation among other churches. Well, these are the guys that began in the pub. The barman at the Indie Bistro was saved during that time. We used to see drug addicts and drug dealers, people in New Age, street people coming into church, encountering God. And so for about a big chunk of our early days, the pub, a lot of work on the streets, feeding the poor. It was all going well. In 2007, we were about 200 strong. We're just starting to do a bit of work in missions. And I just appointed a young couple who actually met on our first year anniversary as a church. I ended up doing their premarital counselling. They ended up getting married, and then they went overseas. They came back, both real high-powered, high-capacity couple. I shared where I'm at as a leader. I would love someone to look after young adults, youth, and help me with some of the visionary side of things. And it was like, we're in. And I thought, this year, 2007, is going to be the best year ever. Had a great holiday in Singapore with the family, came back. The couple are all ready to start. I had a C3 guy from Sydney who's my overseer. He was coming to visit us for the weekend. And I couldn't wait for Richard to meet this couple, because I knew Richard would say, these guys are golden. You guys are going to explode. And I am not naturally, by nature, a very confident person, but this is a time in ministry I can't remember being so confident. It's 2007 is going to be the year we're going to break through 500. We've already planned a church. We're going to plant more churches. We're going to send people into short-term missions, and it was absolutely awesome. So Friday night, the guy arrives. The couple, I book a nice little Italian restaurant in Wembley, and we all arrived. We sat down, my wife, Richard, and this couple. The lady comes along, takes our order, she goes back, we're chatting, and in a moment, unexpectedly, I experienced sheer terror, and I didn't know why. My heart started pounding. I started finding it hard to breathe. And I just had this sense of, I've got to run. And up to this time, as an introvert, I am usually very much, I don't want to make a public spectacle of myself. I've always been a person, I always want to come across as very composed, very chilled. But in that moment, I did something very irrational, and I ran out of the restaurant. Ran out of the restaurant, and I sat in my car, and I began to cry uncontrollably. My body is shaking, and I didn't know what was happening. I thought I was having a breakdown. And then I had this thought of, my father, who's a pastor, in his first year of ministry. He had a breakdown and he was out of ministry for about 14 years. And I began to have this replay of, I am disqualified from ministry. I cannot be a pastor. I'm having a breakdown. I wouldn't be surprised if tonight I'm admitted to Greylands Hospital, that I am, I had visions of being strapped down and given injections, and my wife visiting. In a moment I saw her divorce me. I saw my kids ashamed of me, all within seconds. Richard, obviously in that time, said to my wife Karen, leave this with me, you stay with this couple, say everything's okay, this has never happened before. You know, they're about to begin ministry and they're seeing their senior pastor do this bizarre thing. So Richard is in the car with me, you know, what's going on? I said, I had no idea, I'm freaking out. And, you know, he sort of calmed me down, he prayed, I went back in the restaurant, I couldn't eat, I'm sort of just freaking out, you know, just more talk from my part. We have our meal, we go home, and then, you know, my wife says, what happened? What was that? I said, I don't know, and I'm just still shaking. I can't breathe properly. On the Sunday, so we had a day with Richard. We're meeting with our leaders, and all the time Richard's talking, I'm saying to myself, Rob, you're out. You're disqualified. Shame on you. You know, the church is positioned for growth, and you are not coping. And you're going to lose your marriage, you're going to lose credibility, you're going to lose your church. I spoke to a lady who I knew was involved in mental health, and I said, hey, Lindy, this is what I experienced. I don't know what's going. And she said, oh, Rob, that sounds like a classic panic attack. So I didn't even know what the word was. I've heard of it, and I think I remember scenes of people with the paper bag blowing, but I didn't know what it was. She said, it's okay. It's actually very manageable. And I've got a friend who I'll arrange to see you on Monday morning. She's a counsellor. A counsellor. Like, you can't just get a tablet. Like, you know, you can't just get medicated and numb the pain. And I don't care about what's the cause. I just don't want this feeling of panic. No, it's not quite that simple. So I make my way down to the counsellor, and the counsellor is actually what you would call a cognitive behavioural therapist. In other words, her focus, and she really focuses on anxiety disorder, panic attacks, post-traumatic syndrome. So, you know, a lot of war vets, a lot of people that have perhaps been in a car accident, lost a loved one, that real traumatic stuff. And the idea for a lot of us, where our issues is, I mean, that there is a chemistry part going on, but a primary issue is your thinking. So cognitive, behavioural. So your thinking impacts your behavioural and therapy. And so I went on a journey, which I remember my first appointment. I sat down, I'm still not able to breathe properly, and she said, okay, you're having a panic attack now. So yeah, well, fix it, you know, again, fix it. I want to go on medication. What's the best medication? No, Rob. We're not going to do medication. I don't do medication. And so she explained a lot of what you're experiencing. It might have taken you by surprise, but it's accumulation of probably years and years of a type of thinking that you probably think is normal. But chances are it's very negative, irrational, catastrophic. I began to think of my thinking. Yeah, I've often thought I can't cope. I don't have what it takes, and my stuff about my dad, and didn't have a good relationship because of his depression and him falling out of ministry. And I remember Mum telling, oh, my father was a pastor, and my grandfather, oh, he had to get out of ministry because of mental health. And I think, oh, great, so I've inherited, you know, I'm not responsible. No, it doesn't. You're probably genetically vulnerable, but there is a responsibility I needed to take. Not with 3 sessions or 5 sessions, but at least 15 sessions over about 12 months. No medication, and it was all about thinking. In a little while, I'm going to take you through some of those thinking practices, because it's something you can use even if you don't think you've got anxiety, depression. It's really, really helpful. And in a sense, it's a shame we don't learn this at school. These are some of the things we learn at school. But anyhow, I saw this therapist, and I began to realise that my thinking all of my life has been negative, catastrophic, irrational, and it's taken a toll. I didn't realise. I thought thinking was just thinking. But our thinking and our body are very intimately connected. So as you're thinking and having toxic thoughts, it's actually releasing chemicals in our body which are really good when you need them. Like if you're about to do your first skydive, it's good to have a little bit of fear and adrenaline, because that's how our body is designed. But when you're experiencing that almost 24/7, it's very unhealthy. And at some point, your body is going to wave a white flag and say, I can't keep going like this. And so I realized my body was totally exhausted. My thinking was so exhausted. And it was like this time of learning how to think. So about a year of therapy, the church is growing and it's exploding, and it's like, despite me, and there's a lesson in that. And then for a lot of people on the journey of mental health, a lot of us go through a time of thinking, I think this is behind me now. I think I've nailed this. Haven't had a panic attack for months. One of the impacts of panic attacks is, so I had one in a restaurant. And so in your thinking, you associate panic attack restaurant, public place, panic attack. And so what I started doing is I either started avoiding those places, although you can appreciate, Gordon, as a pastor, a lot of the times you meet people in cafes and restaurants. I had a panic attack, some really bad panic attacks while I'm surfing. I remember one time I'm probably a few hundred metres out, having had a couple of great waves, sitting on the board, and in a moment, my breathing went, I felt dizzy, and I thought, oh no, I'm going to drown. So I associated panic attack surfing, panic attack at the gym, panic attack while I'm driving. And so it became a very debilitating thing. But after about a year of therapy and learning how to rethink and learning how to breathe, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment. So learning how to think, challenging your thinking, changing your thinking, learning how to breathe. And what the breathing exercise that I'll share in a little while, basically that can in about 5 minutes change your whole physiological state from panic, fear, adrenaline, fight, flight, to relaxation. Everything's okay, simply through breathing, meditation, what have you. So I've got about a year of just panic attacks. Oh, yes. I'm so glad we got through that. Thank you, Lord. It was a humbling, at times humiliating experience, but Rob is back. Business as usual. I'm on a plane in January 2010 with my family. We're going to the Gold Coast and ready for a lovely time on the Gold Coast, surfing, go to all the theme parks. And about half an hour before we landed, thought, I'm getting to that age where I need to go to the bathroom. So I go to the bathroom in the little cubicle, and I don't know why I had the thought. I thought, these couples that brag about that they're part of the that club. I think, how do they do that? Because I can hardly sit there, but apparently couples have an intimate moment. Anyhow, I come to think of anything more gross, toilet, anyhow. I'm in this cubicle, all of a sudden we hit some turbulence. I've been in planes so many times, rocking around, wow, that's wild. And I can imagine my son and daughter bed there giggling, Jay's in the bathroom, he's getting shouldered around. And I just thought it was funny. So anyhow, flash, and I'm walking down, split second, panic attack. I'm in a plane. It's really severe. My thinking up until then has been reasonably sound. In a moment, it's back, not again. This is it. I'm going to make a spectacle of myself. I can't escape. I'm in a plane. Anyhow, I sat down. I know I've got about half an hour before we land. And so, I'm doing my breathing exercise. I'm trying to think positive. But it's almost like that default. I've just, all that training, all of that therapy, I just default back to the old Rob. And I'm done. I can't believe this is happening again. Why, God? I've had prayer for this. I've had therapy for this. And so anyhow, we land. Carrie, my kids have no idea. And so I thought, I didn't make a spectacle of myself, but my breathing, my thinking is totally irrational. I'm driving, we've got to hide a car I feel I'm actually intoxicated. I feel like I'm like this zombie. I'm driving, my vision is blurry. We arrive, we're on about the 50th floor. I look down the balcony and I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm freaking out. I then tell my wife, I said, you may not know, but I just had one of the worst panic attacks on the plane. And you know, she's never had one, and she does her best to understand, and it's just, oh, that's horrible, I'm so sorry, you're going to be okay. I think I'll be okay. So the next day I thought the best thing for me to do is go for a long walk along the beach, because I love that time alone with God. Within about 10 minutes of going for this walk, I looked behind to see the hotel, and I had this dread that if I have a panic attack here, I'm a long way from my safety place. And so I went back, totally defeated, thinking this holiday sucks. And then we went to some theme parks, which is great if you love a bit of adrenaline, but I've already got too much adrenaline in my body. It's fight, flight, panic. So anyhow, I don't want to let down the family, so somehow by the grace of God, I managed to go on all the rides with my kids. Crowds, noise, lights, everything is, you're in this place of, I am a basket case. Serious. I am not coping. I cannot keep going like this. This is it. Then I had this thought, 3 days in, how am I going to get home? I'm not going back on the plane. And so I could get a bus, and, you know, then I sort of pros and cons, and, you know, Karen's going to get in, I could get a train. And so then I thought, I know, I'll go to a local GP. So I went to a GP, told him what happened, and said, mate, I'll never see you again, but I want something for the plane, and I want something that's strong. He said, well, I can't just give you something that you take for the first time on the plane, because it can, I don't know how your body's going to respond, so I'm going to give you one now. And so anyhow, basically, I don't know if it was Valium, but it was something pretty strong. It doesn't deal with the issue, but it deals with some of the symptoms. So I'm on the plane and I'm high. I'm sort of zombie, and I'm actually a lot of turbulence. I'm sort of having a panic attack, and I remember father-in-law came to pick us up, and I go home, and it's just like, that was awesome. So I go to my therapist, say, hey, worst thing happened. Told her what had happened. Rob, that's okay. It's very normal, you know, to be going okay for a while and have a relapse, whatever. Let's do our breathing exercise again. You know, I'll go through the exercise. But at that time, I was a bit cynical. You know, come on. Okay, let's look at your thinking. What were you thinking? Well, I wasn't thinking anything. I was enjoying the flight, and it just came. Well, you know, there must have been something, you know, underlying, and I'll make something up to keep her happy. It was just like this. Anyhow, I saw her once. I went back to my GP. I said, I don't care. I want medication. Thankfully, my normal GP wasn't there, and I saw another GP, same place, and she specialises in mental health. And so I told her my experience. I said, Rob, counselling is wonderful and everything else. There are times some people need 6 months, 12 months, whatever, a time for their chemical imbalance to get a little bit more chilled, and, you know, it's not a shame thing. And so she put me on medication. I thought by being on medication it'd be like that Valium thing that you take a tablet and a few minutes, oh yeah, it's all gone. It doesn't work that way. Medication for things like depression, anxiety, this is what it'll be like. For the first few days, absolutely nothing. It hasn't changed a thing. Then for about 3 weeks, you're going to feel absolutely crap. It's like a combination of nausea, irritability, almost just, it's worse. And it's not like a day, but somewhere around about the 5 week mark, you think, ooh. And all I can describe, it's almost like the edge has been taken off. Doesn't deal with the problem. It's not a long-term solution, but it does put you in a place where maybe I'm a little bit more able to get further counselling, deal with pressure, put new things in place, my thinking, everything like that. And so for about 10 years or so, for 10 years I was on medication. In fact, I've only been off for about 3 months. Let me pause. I've been speaking primarily about anxiety. You hear about the words anxiety, panic attacks or panic disorder, depression. And I wouldn't be surprised for some of you, you're connecting. For others, I don't think anxiety, depression is really... What about overwhelm? Are there times you feel overwhelmed? Demands on your life, expectations, what have you. What about fear? Not just normal fear, you see a lion, it's good that you're afraid. That's how God's designed you, but you've got a presentation and then there's this overwhelming sense of, I don't think I've got what it takes. You may not call it anxiety, but it's a fear that can almost be paralysing. You might relate to that. What about the stress, the word stress? Does anyone ever feel stress? Not the good stress where it's good to feel, hey, I've got a day to finish an assignment that I've actually had a month, but I'm leaving it to the last minute. It's actually good to have a little bit of stress. So I probably need to start it. But there is a stress that can take over. There is a word that covers all of those words. And it's the word pain, or the word brokenness. And we are all flawed and broken, and we all feel pain. Because in a sense, I've been speaking about anxiety, but I've also been speaking about pain. And it's amazing when you read the Bible from cover to cover. Yes, it's the God story. It's a story of God's redemption. But what God is dealing with in humanity is pain. Let me read a few statements from men. Adam, I heard you, speaking to God, I heard you in the garden and I was afraid. Moses, I can't carry all these people by myself. This load is far too heavy. I'd rather you kill me than treat me like this. Moses. David, O Lord, why do you stand so far away? Why do you hide when I need you the most? Elijah, I've had enough, Lord. Take my life. I'm no better than my ancestors. Jeremiah, I've cried until my tears no longer come. My heart is broken, my spirit poured out in agony. Jesus, my soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. The Bible is a book about God, His love, His mercy. It's also a book about humanity and brokenness and pain. It's just that the way pain has manifested in my life may be a little bit different than how pain and brokenness is manifesting in your life. And for most of you, I don't know you, I haven't met you before. And for some of you, you may be surprised that I'm sharing this story, that this has been my story. It amazes me in a sense that I share my story and people say things like, oh, I didn't think you're the type. Like there's a profile for people who suffer with mental health issues. What do you mean I don't look like? What do you mean by that? Like you think everyone that's depressed or anxious, there's a type of personality, or this is what that person looks like? Depression, anxiety, overwhelm is no respecter of persons, no respecter of men. Introverts, extroverts, CEOs, elite athletes, Navy SEALs, tradies, pastors, you name it. And it does beg a question, but why? In my case, I don't think there was one cause. I think there were influences. My father, my grandfather. So obviously there's a little bit of a genetic. Some people use the word a genetic disposition. I personally don't like the word because for me, if I hear genetic disposition, it feels like, oh, I've just inherited it, so I'm not responsible for it. I do like the word genetic vulnerability. I think I'm just vulnerable. So I think genetics has played a part. Cognitive, my thinking has played a big part. I think spiritually, there have been times, I think some of my battle has been of a spiritual nature. Curses, just spiritual warfare stuff. Some of it has just been physiological, it's been diet, it's been, sometimes you can have a typical blokey diet and you get away with it until you get into your 40s and then things start changing. Things that you got away with, it's like your body's saying that. And so I think for mental health, there's a whole lot of causes. And as Gordon rightly said, particularly with men, not just men, but particularly with men, I'm a problem to be fixed. No, you're not. The sliding door is jammed. It needs to be fixed. The lawnmower doesn't start. It needs to be fixed. It's broken. It needs to be fixed. It's not about being fixed. We're not a machine. We're men. We've got a soul. And for most of us, it's a journey. So before questions and answers, I thought, I know it's great to get the story, and hopefully the story, there's something relatable about it. And it even confronts our preconceived ideas that anxiety, depression happens to certain type of people. Our church was doing well. It wasn't during a bad time. It was actually during a great time. But yeah, I am an introvert. I can be a bit of a perfectionist. I think too much. And probably over time, it's just the time the body said, you know what, I'm shutting down. It's not business as usual. Something's got to shift. So hopefully there's a sense of connection, a reassurance. Oh gosh, I'm not alone, because statistically about a fifth of Aussies have or are suffering mental health. So there's a fifth, and I'm one of the fifth, that's suffering. Well, we live in a family, we're part of a team, we're part of a church, we're part of a corporation, we're part of a sporting team. So that 1/5 of our population impacts people in the world because of our mental health. My mental health has impacted my wife and my children. Big time. So then you think probably 4/5 of our population are impacted at some level through mental health. In America alone, the number one prescription drug is antidepressants. Surprise, surprise. It's not something for, cancer or rheumatoid arthritis or heartburn or whatever it is. Antidepressants. And you look at the TV and the media and everything like that, the amount of men, all sorts of men in all sorts of positions, having affairs and taking drugs and imploding in public. Your Ben Cousins and all these others, they've all got a story of, there was a point in my life, for whatever reason, I wasn't coping, and for some, they go to drugs, which exacerbates. For others, they have affairs, and it's just this sense of, I want to numb my pain. I want to fix it. So let's get really, really practical. The thinking has been a big part of my strategy and my recovery. And let me say from the start, I stand before you as men, I am still vulnerable. I am not impacted how I used to be. I fly, I travel, I surf, I do all of the things, I speak in public, but I am to this day still vulnerable, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay if I'm in my 60s and 70s and it's still a sense of I'm still vulnerable. But one thing that has helped greatly, and this can be more preventative, if some of you aren't impacted by mental health, this is really good preventative stuff, and it's about thinking. 3 C's. Number 1, catch your thoughts. We need to think about our thinking. And sometimes we just think, but we don't think about our thinking. And up until this time of the public panic attack, I never thought about my thinking. I didn't have to. You just think. And I thought the way I was thinking was normal. But apparently, it's not that it's not normal, it's not healthy. And so, imagine there's this lake, and in this lake are all your thoughts. Why don't you get a little net and just grab and see what comes out? Is there a thought in this pool of your thinking that's a reoccurring thought? It's like a loop. And you catch that thought, I can't cope. I don't have what it takes. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. God doesn't answer my prayers. I'm useless. I'm hopeless. Catch the thought. And then see, is that thought sporadic or is it a loop? Is it one of those thoughts, I can't cope, would be my reoccurring this loop all throughout my childhood? I can now catch, I can go back, I can catch, I can't cope, I can't cope. So you think after about 40-something years, at some point your body's going to say, you know what, you're absolutely right. You're actually now going to live out what you've always thought, which was your perceived reality. Now it is your reality. Guess what? You're not coping. I can't cope. So you catch it. Then you challenge it, you little sucker. You catch it. Is it truth? Is that thought coming from God?
It's twisted.
It's twisted. You see, I can't cope. You think, that's evil. That's dark. Then how has this thought been serving me? Well, it's held me down, it's paralysed me, it's impacted my relationships, it's caused me to withdraw. And then you catch it, you challenge it, you see the devastation, and then you change it. So I'm going to now not just get rid of it, I'm going to replace it. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. This is going to make me stronger. Today is a new day. Hey, this is time to dig deep. Whatever the phrase is, you now change your thought. Don't think for a moment this exercise, you do it once, I've reprogrammed my thinking. No. This has taken me years. I'm better, I'm not there yet. But when I catch that thought, it's back again, catch it, I know how you've served me, and I'm not listening to you anymore. Sorry, can't hear, but I can hear. I can do all things. Yeah. And so it's an exercise we can all do. You might think, I'm not dealing with anxiety. Do the exercise anyhow. Take an inventory of your thinking over a day, over a week. Every time you have a thought, write it down and just see how many thoughts are inspired, come from the voice of God, and how many come from the father of lies. Catch it, challenge it, change it. Another thing that's been part of my journey that has helped is breathing. Is everyone breathing right now? It's weird, isn't it? I heard recently, I was just reading some stuff about Buddhism, things like that, and for the best age, if you want to be a monk, is about the age of 5. And what they do with children in their first year of learning to be monk is not their ABC, not, times table. They spend the first year learning to breathe. Because for a lot of these guys, it's all about the breath. Now, it's interesting for us in the West, as Christians in the West, we think the West is best. I can remember a time in the 80s, if someone said, I'm having acupuncture, you go, oh, no, you don't do that. I'm seeing a doctor and I'm getting into some Chinese medicine. Oh, East bad, West is best. Where did we get that from? What arrogance. Let me show you what Western medicine looks like. I go to my doctor about 15 years ago. I'm getting heartburn. Oh, how often? Oh, pretty well every night. Here's prescriptions called Nexium. You just take 1 tablet a night for the rest of your life. Oh, okay. So go home, go to the chemist, and for years and years I'm taking Nexium. It's in the top 5 prescription drugs in America. Obviously the top 1, antidepressants, but in the top 5 is Nexium. No one's ever asked why. And about 2 years ago, I changed my diet for just different reasons. I felt that something wasn't right, bloated and whatever else. And I just thought, I've heard of, different sporting people doing this gluten-free thing. I thought, probably a fad, I'll give it a crack. So for about a month or so, didn't have any gluten, reintroduced gluten. Whoa. Exactly. So, I'm going gluten-free. So I'm going gluten-free. And then I thought, Nexium. I wonder if I need it. So stop taking it. Told my GP, I'm going to stop taking it. What do you reckon? He said, well, if it comes back, you can just take the tablet again. Oh, that was about 3 or 4 months ago. I haven't had a tablet since. You see, in Western medicine, take a tablet. Magic pill. And then for a lot of you get to your 40s and 50s, you start taking lots of pills, and then after a while you realise that one interacts with this one, and we haven't actually got long-term research on what is the impact of Nexium after 40, 50 years. But anyhow, another story. All I'm saying, there are some things that we can learn from the East. Okay? And one of them is breathing. Although it should be neutral. It's not an Eastern thing, it's not a Western thing, it's just a human thing. But you would find for a lot of us, our breathing most of the time is shallow and quick, erratic, and it's our normal. Doesn't everyone sort of breathe really quickly? And it's like, no. Because what happens is we are often in a constant state of fight, freeze, or flight. It is a part of our brain, God-given part, a part of the brain that is very primal, that is all about survival. And if it perceives a threat, whether it's a line or a presentation or an assignment, it can't tell the difference. It will release adrenaline and cortisol. It will impact your breathing. Your eyes will dilate, and you are ready. I'm either going to fight this thing, so, it could be a lion. I'm going to have to fight it. I can't outrun it. If it's a bear, I might freeze, because sometimes apparently if you just drop dead or pretend you're dead, it'll leave you alone. Or I'm just going to do a Forrest Gump, and I'm going to run for my life. But either way, for a moment, you are prepared. Adrenaline, everything is, it's this rush, and it impacts your breathing, which is okay for a moment. But if it's day after day after day, this really shallow and quick breathing, it's like all the time there is unhealthy, overwhelming adrenaline, cortisol. Your body is constantly high alert, and it's exhausting, and it impacts your sleep, and your sleep impacts your mental health, and it just goes backwards and forwards. And so what you do, what this therapist did is, I'm going to teach you how to breathe. And the easiest breathing exercise, just remember 3, 3, 3. You breathe in through your nose, not your mouth. By breathing in through your nose, you're slowing your breathing down. Mouth, hyperventilation. You're taking in too much oxygen. Nose, slowly, count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Then you hold your breath for 3. 1, 2, 3. And then you let it out for 3. 1, 2, 3. Another point, not just breathing in through your nose, you use your diaphragm. A lot of people, I want you to take a deep breath. No. Here, diaphragm. 1, 2, 3. You do that for a few minutes, a couple of times a day. Bring that into your morning routine, evening routine, before you go to sleep. First thing you do is you wake up, before you do a presentation, before you preach, before you make a difficult phone call. If you do that, I can almost guarantee it'll take a few months before it really starts impacting. In about 3 minutes to 5 minutes, you can change your whole physiology from stress, fight, flight to relaxation. Breathing, thinking. He restores my soul. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I am filled with the Holy Spirit. Thinking, breathing, meditation have all been part of my slow, gradual, at times frustrating journey to recovery. Remember going on holidays, driving from our house in Wembley Downs down to, Dunsborough. Our kids are about, 5 and 7. And you probably get to about our divers and you hear, "Are we there yet?" And then you get to the point, you're getting close to Bunbury, you think, for goodness sake, we'll have to stop in Bunbury, and you go to, little circuit, KFC, Hungry Jack's, whatever. And, okay, back in the car, and then you finally get there. Are we there yet? And sometimes we're like that as men, especially when it comes to mental health and we're dealing with issues. It's like we want to get there really quickly. And it's a little bit easier when it's travelling there for our kids as Dunsborough. And you don't care, you could give a rip about the journey. When I say things like enjoy the scenery, it's like, what is that? You're like, kids don't enjoy scenery. I want to go from here to here really quick. And in mental health, That first time I had my panic attack and I saw my therapist, I want to get to there. Give me a tablet because that'll get me to there. It's like, no. This is how you get to there.
One step at a time.
And sometimes it feels like you're doing that. But if you watch a game of soccer, AFL, there are times you've got to pass the ball, kick the ball backwards to go forwards. Like you're going forwards, you're not getting through. So let's start going backwards and we'll take another route forward. And it comes back to the thinking again. So when I'm doing this and then I'm doing that, it's not relapse. It's not setback. It's just, it's part of the journey. Because sometimes it can be like, what is this? I've relapsed. What do you call that? I just call it humanity. I just call it being human. It's like, it's rarely just step, and you get there. It's step back, and it's stall, and it's, freeze. But overall, the last 10 years or so, but you've got to ask the question, what's there? Like, what is the destination? What, I'm perfect? No. I'm less impacted by anxiety and depression, overwhelm? Yes. But what I've learned, even though I've been desperate to get here, God hasn't been desperate to get me there.
Be with you the whole time.
Absolutely. The journey is in the journey. The journey is in the journey. God actually isn't
Surprise.
He's not surprised and he's not in a hurry. Have you noticed that? 40 years in the wilderness? You're kidding me. I've had 10 years. It feels like 10 years in the wilderness. God, it's like, when you are here, I want you here as a different person. And part of being a different person is the journey.
Yeah.
So with Israel, if they went straight from Egypt and 2 weeks later got into the promised land, which it could have been done, Egypt's still in there.
Yeah.
And part of the journey, it was brutal, it was stripping away, and all of the moaning and groaning was part of the journey that prepared them. Because when you get to here, it's not sit down and chill out. You've got to start fighting. And you're not ready to fight. And so I know God has more for me, but something profound has happened in the slow. And at times the going backwards. And all of the reading and all the counselling and all the exercising and all the changing of diet and all that stuff is being part of, right, I'm wholly present with you here. It's not like I'm wholly present with you there. I'm with you here. And there is something in the here and now you'll never get again. Because what this has done, it has absolutely humiliated and devastated me. And that has been really healthy. Because the guy for 40 plus years, I got away with stuff, in a sense. That fateful night was a wake-up call of God saying to Rob, it's not going to be business as usual. My love and my mercy is we are going to deal with some stuff that has taken its toll. And not only that, you haven't actually been disqualified from ministry. If anything, you are more qualified.
Exactly.
Because a lot of my preaching up until that time was, it's positive and it's great and this is what God's word says, it's great. I'll share a little bit of a flaw here and a flaw there. And then I took a risk. I started sharing with the church about my battle with my mental health. And over a few months, I've never heard so many comments from people, Rob, you are so much more relatable now. I get you. You came across as this chilled out guy that everything just seems to go well, and
There was no connection there.
there was no connection. It was almost like they were saying politely, you're as messed up as I am. It was like, absolutely. Because don't think for a moment, to be qualified for pastoral ministry, you've got to have it all together. My goodness. I read some of the statements from some of the great men of the Bible. Take my life, it's too much,
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Wow, get my issues. So I think I've probably shared enough. I can speak. I'm writing a book called Shame Off You. So some of this will be in it, a lot more stories about the whole journey of not just mental health, but the journey of shame. I'm going to speak more about shame tomorrow, where today I'll probably more focus on the mental health side and probably focus more on men. But tomorrow it's more on shame. But I do have a fairly regular blog, Instagram. If you want to follow me, go to robmason.co. And if you go to my website, on the first page, I'll sort of, it's like this welcome type of deal. And then you can, if you want to, there's no like membership fee, you can join the Shame Off You tribe. And there's about 60 of us at the moment. And all it is about once every couple of weeks, I'll send out an email. There'll also be a blog. I'll have quotes on my Instagram. It's just little things just to stir the pot and what have you. So I think I've probably shared enough. What might be helpful now is to go into a time of Q&A. So any questions, and it can be, and I get it with men, it could be either for yourself or your friend. Like I've got this friend, it's not me. Okay, it's not me, but I've got this mate, right? But anyhow, any questions, whether it's for yourself, it could be a friend, or just some clarification, or just questions about mental health, shame, the whole thing of where is God in all of this, and fire away.
Before that first panic attack, are there any leading indicators and stuff you can do?
Really good question. On the one hand, it felt like a surprise, it came out of nowhere. But if I go back, there were indicators that I wasn't actually tracking well. Some of those indicators would have been insomnia. I'd find I'd get to bed really tired, and then bang, it was like you get this second lot of cortisol, stress, and I started thinking, but my thinking was very nervous thinking, very agitated, I've got to do this, what if I do that and they leave? And if they leave the church, they leave the church, they leave the church, they leave the church, and then the tithes and offerings go down, I'm going to have to ask them to step down from leadership, and if they're going to step down from leadership, they're going to leave. I would role play this.
Sabotaging yourself.
I was sabotaging myself. But I never had the sense of the panic attack that got my attention. I just assumed it was just my private little battle that I was ashamed of, but I sort of thought was normal. I didn't realise it was actually unhealthy. So it's a brilliant question, because a lot of people say with depression, anxiety, it happened suddenly. But you can always backtrack. Ever hear someone say, I had an affair, and it just out of nowhere? It's like, no. You can always backtrack. Somewhere there was a compromise in your thinking, there was some, a flirting, and over time it led to the... So absolutely. I can even remember, in fact, in the book, the entry point for fear that was paralysing and anxious thinking goes to a time I had a minor operation under general. This is in the days your parents would drop you off and then they'll pick you up. They weren't there, and so you're sort of in this little bed, and then a lady comes, do you want the injection in your arm and your bottom? It was like, are you kidding me? And I freaked out. A doctor had to come to pin me down while she gave me the injection. That was a point in the child's psyche where you felt abandoned and you realised the world isn't safe as I thought. And so I'd say that was probably an entry point. I'm going to share another one tomorrow. That you begin to join the dots and you realise, this has been going on for decades. And it's not surprising, particularly for people in their 40s and 50s. It sort of catches up with you, stuff you got away with. And so you find a lot of CEOs, a lot of people in their 40s, 50s, in marriages, you do get to this point, because things, hormonally, we do change, and the way we deal with pressure, we're not as resilient, and it's not surprising for some people, bang, it all hits the fan. Absolutely brilliant question. Very good. It's all journey. Like I've been on a journey of recovery, but I also had a journey of dysfunction that led to a very public hit the fan. There's a word I like to say, but I'm not allowed to say it. But you're all thinking it, because that's what it felt like. It
happens.
It happens.
Make peace with it.
And it's okay. Although at the time it's terrifying. Yeah.
Just one notes on combination of ashamed, being ashamed, depression.
Yes.
I was involved, it was involved in an incident where I had to have an operation.
Yes.
After the operation, I was unable to physically provide what I felt I had to provide
Yeah.
to support my family.
Whoa.
It's been a long struggle.
Yes.
I've seen it through praise to Jesus.
Yes.
But just feeling so inadequate and being unable to provide, the feeling of
Failure.
shame.
Yep. Shame, failure, and it's very... See, what I'll share tomorrow is, in a sense, my shame from all these things led to anxiety/depression. But then that also led to shame. It's like a shame double whammy. Shame's a pathway to mental health, and mental health is a pathway to shame, and it's just like that. So what you've just done is the key. The key with mental health and shame is vulnerability. Now, vulnerability means a risk. So you could share that, and a group of guys go, "Oh, right, make sure I don't talk to you. That's weird. That was too much. That was oversharing." Or what could happen, you share, respect is lifted, not feeling sorry, but compassion, relatability. That takes balls. Can I use the word balls? That takes balls. And there is where the healing is. The healing is in vulnerability. Here is the key, if I could add on to that, because that's another thing, it can be the gradual thing, or it could be a trauma. And then the trauma, and as a guy, not being able to provide, and again, the thinking, you're not a man. Or maybe there was a time, come on, man up, come on, I've just got to push through. No. What you experienced was real, it was impacting. But where are you equipped? Where are we equipped to deal with that stuff? Where are men equipped when they come back from war, or paramedics who see stuff, experience stuff all the time? Where do we get equipped to deal with that stuff?
Basically, I think with a lot of incidents, a lot of people deal with emergency management at that time. It's all built into their training.
Yes.
But as a man of God, the training is built into your faith,
Yes.
into your belief. So if you have that training, you have that belief,
Yes.
and keep relying on it, you can do all things through Christ.
Amen.
So if you've got that belief,
Yes.
it's going to see you through.
For sure.
Whereas if you're relying on your own devices, you're going to become a crocker.
I don't know, and obviously people do, but I don't know how you get through this sort of stuff without faith.
I couldn't go through what I went through without my faith.
Because, breathing helps and, meditation helps, whatever, but still faith, someone outside of ourselves, someone bigger, someone all-encompassing, unlimited, and then being part of a community. It's faith in God, but you've got corporate faith. Every time you get together, it's like our faith leaks. It's like today we're going to leave, and each other's faith sort of gets on us, and it's like, Can I just take this a little further? Particularly with shame. The nature of shame, and you can see this with Adam and Eve, is it wants you to hide. Fear of being exposed. I don't want people to really know me. So shame says it's a parasite. It feeds off a vulnerable soul, so, there's a trauma. Shame enters in, and then it says to you, because it's a parasite, it feeds off the host. The food is silence. Just silence, hiddenness.
Yeah.
This is how you break shame. You tell someone you trust, I'm experiencing shame because of. Now there's a risk, this is where vulnerability. You could come across the Bible answer man. I don't know if you've got any of those in your church, but when you share stuff, heart to heart, they just respond, not heart to heart, they don't share with the person in the Bible. Oh, don't be anxious. It says, Rob, it says in the Bible, and I've had this, Rob, it says in the Bible very clearly, do not be anxious. So, brother, just repeat that over and over again. Yeah, don't be anxious. Then you have others who you share and then they go, well, too much sharing, whatever, leave you alone, whatever. This is what I've learned. Even though it's great to be able to share our journey and get a really positive response, there is healing in sharing anyhow. Because what you're doing is you are breaking the power of shame. You're going public, you're telling someone, and it actually dismantles shame, because it's like, hey, shame, you thrive on hiddenness. I'm now going to share with Gordon, I'm going to share with Keith about my shame. Whatever the response is, I've broken it.
Let the parasites out.
The parasite's out. There's no food anymore. It can't feed off you anymore. Because it's like, you know what? I'm feeling what everyone else feels. Shame off you. And shame's going, I've got to find another soul. You know, it leaves your body, you know, it goes for another host. But that's where I think building resilience of we're all broken.
Yeah.
We all have pain.
But I've found with the men's group at this church,
Yes.
we're able to share a lot.
What you have here is quite unique, to be honest. Because it's easy to have men group, you know, rah-rah, and, you know, and some of the stuff us men do, and it's fun. But I think you have something here. There is a realness, there is a collective vulnerability that I believe Gordon and others over years and decades have built into the culture. You know, it's not about the Sunday smile, trying to impress each other. How are you today? Hey, brother, really good. How are you? Blessed be the name of the Lord. It's like, not that we have to, how you go, yeah, I'm struggling with this, struggling with that. It's not like going up the other way, but it's just, you have created a safe place.
Keep up the image. Like, that's what, for me, the traditional church as such.
Yes.
The stuffiness or the front they put up. That's where I've been brought up, you know, from a long time. My father was sent to boarding school for grade 1.
Okay.
So that was a choir school, you know, Durham Cathedral.
Yes.
Right? So the richness, the structure, that sort of thinking is wrong, and that's what I've learned. You know?
Yes.
I use that as it's not a crutch, but a reason for not going to that, because I saw that it's false. And
Yes.
Why would I believe in something that's false?
Sure.
Because I go to, and I say, people that don't understand this, because you say one thing,
Yes.
you do the complete
Hypocrites.
opposite. And that's what I would always say
Yes.
to my wife. They're all bloody hypocrites.
Yeah.
And they say, now they smile at your face and you feel it stabbing in your back as you walk
Shallow.
out the door, you know. So for me, that is why, and it's only, I've only handed my life to Christ in the last 12 months.
Awesome, Mark. How
Gordon is the witness of that. And I am more empowered now.
you can see it in you, man. You are. And isn't it?
It's liberating for me.
That I was going to use the word freedom, but liberating. It is liberating when you can just be real, be yourself.
And I've been dealing with depression my whole life.
Whoa.
I relate to you so much.
Yeah. No, I thought there was a little bit of feedback happening. I thought you're either just a very enthusiastic person, or you get.
I've been through all.
Got therapy going on.
Hey man, I just relate to
But
you so much.
the thing is, we've had something similar, that your story
I've got my own
is
story,
so unique, and it's equally like every story is powerful because God is in every story. He's the author of every story. And one of the things I talk about people, and it's really good to be able to do this, is not just ask the words that you're telling yourself. What is your self-narrative? What is the story you're telling yourself about yourself? Because if I looked at my narrative, a lot of it was it's just all about shame. I'm hopeless, I'm useless, I'm dumb, I can't cope, and all these things. And yet over the last few years, it's like it's still part of the story, but hey Rob, there's a new chapter. Can you allow me to actually start writing your story rather than writing it yourself?
That is good.
Oh, okay. And then it's still got filled with brokenness and flaws and everything else, but it's just, what was that little chorus? You remember the era? Something beautiful, something good. How's it go? Something beautiful, something good. All my confusion, he understood. All I had to offer him was brokenness and strife, but he made something beautiful of my life. I know some of the young guys are going, What was that? It was called a chorus back then. And you repeat about 10 times. Let's sing it again and again. But God, throughout the Bible, He works with brokenness. He's the potter, we're the clay. And the clay can't tell the potter, sorry, don't do it that way, please. No, the clay just you press wherever you want. You can squeeze wherever you want. And you just, oh, you want to put me in that? Whoa, that looks hot. Well, it's going to be really good for you. Well, it looks really hot. No, you're going in there. You go in, it's this kiln. It's now you go out, now you're on this little shelf because you need to cool down. It's just like, well, I was just a lump of clay. Now I'm this vase and I've got this glow about me. But the journey, gosh, that was brutal.
Well, you talk about fixing things. I have the attitude, something's broken, I can't fix it.
Yeah.
And I don't do. I fix things,
Yeah, so how do you fix depression, Mark? How do you fix...
When I was in high school, my nickname was Dynamite. Small but powerful. I can also wreck things in a instant. And my tongue is my weapon. And
yeah.
I can cut people down, I can just rip their hearts and cut their hearts to bits in an instant.
And how do you feel, like when you did that, how did you feel about yourself when you could cut someone down?
It was sort of, for me, an equaliser. It was totally wrong. I've only come to realise this later in the last part of my life. But my father was the most negative person you could ever meet. Everything he said, everything he thought was always negative.
Yes.
We had a hotel in the wheat belt called Muckaboot.
Oh, yeah.
The price of beer was going up. Oh, we're not going to sell any more beer. The price of cigarettes going up. Oh, we're not going to sell any more cigarettes. This is when cigarettes were $1 for a packet of cigarettes.
Luxury.
Now they're $37, $76 for a packet. He would just be blown away if he thought about what his outlook on life was. And you are how you brought up. And
my dad was exactly the same.
when I think that I am so much like my father, it's just scary. I haven't spoken to my father for over 20 years.
Really?
Wanted to connect with him last weekend.
Yeah.
I thought he lived in Mount Barker, so I went on the journey last weekend. Anyway,
Whoa.
I brought up courage and spoke to Graham about it to confront my father.
Yes.
Went to Mount Barker. Turns out he doesn't live there anymore. He's moved to Tasmania. Well, unbeknownst to me, but I prepared myself.
The fact that you're pursuing.
And he's in his 80s now. And I wanted to say to him, Dad, I'll let you go.
Yeah.
I am strong.
Yes.
He's never been proud of me. When I was in high school, my school principal said to my father, your son will never ever amount to anything. And from that day on, he took that to be, and he wrote me off there.
And your narrative must look so different now, because that was part of your narrative. Nothing good is going to come out of my life.
I've always been self-reliant, self-sufficient. I've never needed his help.
No.
I've always stood up on my own 2 feet, done everything, and I could never have dreamed of all the things I have done in my life. I could write a book about all the different things, and that's a whole different story.
Yeah, good on you, Mark. Wow, that's
fantastic. And Rob heard some of our story. We went to Kwinana and it kind of put our church in a bit of a bad place. But actually, this guy came from Kwinana, so he wasn't saved. And I baptised him a year or so ago, and I watched his life turn around. And lives can turn around.
That's very good.
And it is the narrative that's been written that we've wrongly believed, and I was just thinking too about seeing the therapy.
I'll send you my bill later.
And here's the thing. I don't know what he's going to charge.
No, nothing.
But there's a whole bunch of other therapists in here.
That's it. We can all.
And that's what our men's group experiences for the blokes every Saturday morning. Maybe other reasons, as you said, there's lawns to be mowed and the program. But it's just good to be able to share with someone else. Particularly
Yeah.
when they don't try to give you the answers.
Well, the Bible says that problem shared is hard.
Yeah.
The joy
It's
shared
true.
is
Hello.
hard.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, what I'm going to do, thank you,
Oh, pleasure.
Rob. I'm going to pray. Because Jeff has slaved over a hot stove.
Oh.
Right, cookies, we can do justice to those. And because you knocked off all my coffee in the first round, I brought some more over. And so there's that there. Good for you to come out this morning, guys.
Oh, I'm impressed.
And the young guys.
Yes.
Great to have you here.
Hey.
Not immune from it.
I'm going to pray that we're going to besiege the urn and the coffee and
Yeah,
the
come on.
cookies and all that. Hang around because
Yeah.
therapy needs to continue. What Rob's done, he's put his finger on a whole lot of things, and everyone's got some different things, and it's good. You might want to buttonhole him, but you can't all do that. So
No.
buttonhole someone else and just say,
But
hey.
go on the website and we can connect.
Yeah. Now if, we'll make sure that
Yeah.
people get in here, become part of the tribe.
Part of the tribe.
Yeah.
Shame off you.
Straight off that tribe. Yeah. Father in heaven, we thank you, our God and Father. Love us so much. And you've got a better plan for us than we have for ourselves. And so often, Father, we think our own thoughts about things are just totally wrong. They're twisted. No longer be conformed to the pattern of this world, but be transformed
Yes.
by the renewing
Yes.
of your mind. And Father, we want to live by your pattern. And so often stuff gets in the way of that. And find ourselves writing our own story. Father, thank you for all that Rob has shared with us this morning. Thank you for his story. And thank you that is touching hearts and lives here right now. Father, as we share over tea and coffee, Lord, help us to share with one another, that we might bring ministry to one another through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Jesus, I want to add that these are all sons
Yes.
in whom you are well pleased.
Yes.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
loving us.
Yeah.
Amen.
Very good. Good
Coffee, tea, hot chocolate, chips, cookies.
Cookies. Any gluten free?